Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 7 of Vuelta a Catalunya. It's the last day here of the week of racing in Spain, and we have Higuita, Bora Hansgrohe that's in the race leader's jersey. Now, we want to go into the Bora Hansgrohe bus here before the start of the stage because there is a lot of drama to be had on this last stage if the team is not well organized. If they're a little bit lost like UAE Team Emirates were yesterday, and they were a lot lost yesterday. But if Bora Hansgrohe just get a little lost, they're in trouble because they started here at Vuelta a Catalunya with 6 guys. The full complement of the team originally on stage 1 was Ben Zayoff, Jai Hindley, Higuita, Martin Lass, Palzer, and Benedetti. Now they'll lose Benedetti on stage 4, so that means they're starting here on stage 5 they're starting here on the last stage here with 5 riders instead of 6, and they were supposed to start Catalunya with 7 to begin with, so they even came up here short to begin with. That means that Higuita's team, Bora Hansgrohe, they just absolutely have to be perfect. Now other teams such as Jumbo-Visma have a reduced squad. Ineos only have 3 riders here. Movistar are left with 4. So a lot of teams are in predicaments here when it talks about covering attacks, being able to bring breaks back, or trying to win the stage here on the last day. But Bora Hansgrohe is really the one I want to focus on, because with only 5 riders, it could be panic time if the team is not well organized. So when we're sitting in the bus here with the manager of Bora Hansgrohe, he's got to delegate who's going to do the first work of the stage, who's going to do the middle part, who's going to do into the circuit, because we have 6 laps of 8 kilometers with a 2.5 kilometer climb that has pitches at 19%. So it's a very difficult circuit, only being 8 kilometers long, and 2.5 kilometers of that's uphill. So Bora Hansgrohe have to do everything perfect. And when the manager in the bus is looking at his 5 riders, we all know Higuita can climb, but he's wearing the race leader's jersey, so you can't put him in an isolated position for too long of a time here on the last finishing circuits. That means when you look at the other 4 riders, Jai Hindley was second at the Giro d'Italia 2 years back, so we know he's a climber, and he's going to put on a fantastic display here for Bora Hansgrohe. But when you're sitting in the meeting with only 5 Bora Hansgrohe riders, the manager is hoping Jai Hindley can do something special, because you can't expect Higuita to be riding for 2 or 3 laps on the front defending the race lead himself. So Jai Hindley, the crucial card, the glue that goes between the first 3 riders on Bora Hansgrohe that have to work to the last rider that hopefully can win here at Catalunya for Bora Hansgrohe. The next 3 riders, I'm talking about Martin Lass, and he's the pure sprinter here on Bora Hansgrohe, and that's not exactly what you want on a stage like this. The upside is Martin Lass can pull really strong throughout the first part of this course before we get onto the circuit. But you know, if you're Bora Hansgrohe and you're looking at Martin Lass being a pure sprinter, you know he's not going to make it over the climb. I know he won't, because I was teammates with him a few years back when I was doing Tour of Romania. Fantastic guy, great teammate, love him, but he's not going to make it over these climbs. And the Bora Hansgrohe DS, he has to know that. So the first rider that's going to do the bulk of the work before you get on the circuit, the director is going to point to Martin Lass as being that guy. Now, the other 2 guys left are going to be Palzer and Zivoff, and those 2 riders, they have to go to the circuit and hopefully be able to get through 1 or 2 laps of the circuit so that Jai Hindley can take over with lap 3, 2, and 1 to go and be there for race leader Higuita. Especially, remember, not only do you need Jai Hindley in that front group to possibly cover and bring moves back, but Jai Hindley has to be there in case Higuita has a bike problem, flat mechanical crashes, anything like that. You need to have at least one teammate, and possibly they can switch bikes, or he can give a wheel, or he can help tow him back on. So Jai Hindley is the glue, and the most crucial rider here on Bora Hansgrohe has to be Jai Hindley. Of course, Higuita. Now, when you look at the race leader here at Catalunya, Bora Hansgrohe's director, they have to tell Higuita that at no point in time, if Carapaz should attack, if Almeida should attack on the circuit going up the climb on the steepest, hardest section, Higuita has to cover those moves immediately. He cannot rely on Jai Hindley to do that kind of work. Now, when we get into the race, there's a massive break up front. It's 11 guys, and they have 1 minute gap. And there's some threats in there. Dylan Teuns from Bahrain Victorious. He's only 2 minutes down on the general classification. So that is a big threat for Bora Hansgrohe. Now, the problem is for Dylan Teuns is that Bora Hansgrohe got some help. This is what the Bora Hansgrohe director was hoping would happen when he's delegating all the work to his riders in the bus before the start of the race. He's hoping. He was saying in the bus that let's hope another team comes to the front. And normally on the last stage, another team will. Now, I got asked in the comments many times yesterday why no other teams came up to help UAE Team Emirates throughout the stage yesterday on stage 6. The main reason, I honestly believe, it was only 2 riders up the road. I don't believe any of the directors thought that that was a major threat. I believe they were all going to put their teams on the front once we got down off the last descent and started that last 15, 20 kilometers into the run and the finish of the stage. But of course, Ayuso blew everything up yesterday, and then it was chaos back there. Now you look at today's stage with 11 riders up the front, 3 FDJ riders, 2 Trek Segafredo, and then you throw in UAE Team Emirates, Marc Soler is in that front group. That's a major threat. But Bora Hansgrohe got help back there because it's the young Uno-X team back there riding on the front for their race leader, Tobias Johannesson. Now, with that, all of a sudden, that takes a lot of pressure off the Bora Hansgrohe rider because now, instead of 1 or 2 Bora Hansgrohe riders on the front, they have those guys plus a host of Uno-X riders keeping that gap to 1 minute. When we get on the circuit with about 45 kilometers to go, it's 6 laps left, and right away we see the attack from the front of the group, and it's Steven Kruijswijk from Jumbo-Visma along with Quentin Paschier from FDJ. Those 2 riders will increase that 30-40 second gap up to another 5 or 10 seconds for the lead on the peloton. And behind, as soon as we go up the climb, it's UAE Team Emirates dictating the pace as they got their full team up there with 3 guys leading it up the climb and just blowing this peloton up. Now, crucial moment when we go back to that team meeting bus there with Bora Hansgrohe. Jai Hindley has to survive these accelerations, and he does beautifully. We know Higuita can climb. We know he's on form. He does, of course, and he's always up there near the UAE Team Emirates train. But Jai Hindley is surviving over these big accelerations from UAE Team Emirates. With 4 to go, it's UAE Team Emirates' George Bennett in the front group of 4, and in front of him is still the original 2 breakaway riders, Steven Kruijswijk and Quentin Paschier. They're about 30 and 45 seconds up the road. And again, Bora Hansgrohe have some help because it's Uno-X back there on the front. And then we'll see Jai Hindley get on the front. This is when we really start to see the Bora Hansgrohe rider go to work for his race leader, Higuita. He gets on the front, sets a nice tempo to keep the gap there at a relative same time going up the climb. But he's not going to just blow it up. You don't ever see him get on the front and panic. Jai Hindley is always smooth. He's doing exactly what he needs to do throughout these 6 laps on the circuit. And he's setting a fantastic tempo, but not one so hard that when guys start attacking, because you know with 4 laps to go, there's still a lot of attacks to come. So Jai Hindley is setting a tempo that keeps the speed from dropping down to 0 and allowing the brake to explode and get up there and put more dangerous time on Higuita. He's setting the pace steady, but always leaving a little bit in reserves so that he can stay on after the attacks start really coming in strong force here with 4 laps to go. With 3 to go, Jai Hindley is still on the front, and now it's time for the plan A of Ineos to start coming into effect. Now, they started this stage with only 3 riders, and they're still going to dictate what happens throughout the final of this stage 7. Ineos are doing a fabulous job, and it's Jonathan Castroviejo that's going to soften up all the legs as he's drilling it on the front. Afterwards, it's going to be Carlos Rodriguez that take over. That acceleration from Ineos is what's going to bring back those 4 leaders up front, but there's still 2 more leaders up there. Steven Kruijswijk and Quentin Paschier are still managing to survive with a time gap of just about 30 seconds. With 2 laps to go, it's Uno-X on the front along with Ineos, and then we start seeing the plan here of Ineos as it's Carapaz throwing in a massive attack. It's followed directly by Tobias Johannesson, whose acceleration with 2 laps to go on the climb is absolutely impressive, and it's hurting legs all over the place back there in the field of GC favorites. Tobias will go over the summit of the climb with Carapaz and Higuita locked on his wheel. And behind chasing, we're going to see UAE Team Emirates trying to close the gap back up to the favorites up front. With 10 kilometers to go before we get into the very last bell of lap here at stage 7 of Catalunya, Santiago Buitrago will throw in a big attack. The Bahrain victorious rider knows he needs a bit of a gap if he's going to try to win here at Vuelta Catalunya on stage 7. He gets a bit of a gap, but behind, guess who's chasing, doing the job to try to set this up. With 1 lap to go, Jai Hindley is on the front. We see him look over his shoulder. He's checking out to see if Higuita is doing okay. Higuita's fine. He accelerates through the corner after 1 lap to go and starts setting the pace up the climb. And this is what I'm talking about with Jai Hindley. Throughout this last stage at Catalunya, absolutely fabulous. His timing, his position, his being able to ride the front without blowing up, allowing all the big acceleration from Tobias Johannesson, Carapaz, from UAE Team Emirates, all those big accelerations. Even though Jai Hindley had been riding the front, he's able to survive those. Okay, over the summits, he's coming off, but he's staying with the group back there that will always attach back up to the GC favorites as they slow down and play a little bit of games. And then Jai Hindley always right back on the front for his general classification leader. He's not going to leave his leader like we saw yesterday with Ayuso dropping Almeida down the descent. Now, he always stays, always calm, and now with 1 lap to go, this is the key moment that you know with Bora Hansgrohe DS back in the bus. This is what he was asking Jai Hindley to be good at. Set a steady tempo. Don't blow up. Don't panic. Don't worry about the time gaps. Let's hope some other teams come up and help us like X do. Let's hope UAE Team Emirates drill it on the front sometimes and allow Higuita to change wheels and go there, and then allow Jai Hindley a little bit of ability to drift back on the climbs and then come back on the descents, which is what we have been seeing from Jai Hindley throughout this stage 7. Now with 1 to go, he's doing a fantastic job until it's Barcelo from Caja Royal who throws in a massive acceleration. It is impressive with all the GC guys all together, with the break being brought back with 2 laps to go. Then it's Barcelo Caja Royal that throws in a massive attack. The last time up this climb, Santiago Buitrago, he got caught and brought back. Barcelo is doing a fabulous acceleration. And then it's Tobias Johannesson, the X rider. His team had been doing big work on the front throughout this stage, and Tobias is paying the team back. He looks fabulous, throwing in a big acceleration. We see Nairo Quintana back there suffering. When they near the summit, it's UAE Team Emirates. It's Almeida and Ayuso 1 and 2 that are throwing in a massive attack with just a couple hundred meters before the summit. They'll go over the summit with the 2 UAE Team Emirates along with Tobias Johannesson. Ben O'Connor is there. Carapaz has to do a massive dig from the back to close the gap because it's Higuita up front with the leaders, and they got a gap going down the descent. Now, if you remember yesterday, stage 6, Carapaz was not that fantastic going down the descents. Even on earlier circuits here at stage 7, I saw Carapaz getting gapped from his teammate up there, Carlos Rodriguez. And now I'm wondering, is he going to lose a podium here at Vuelta Catalunya because he can't descend? Well, he must have let off the brakes and hung it all out, because Carapaz will come back up to the front group of 5 there and make it 6. When the road goes hard to the right and slightly back up to finish today's stage, it's only 3 kilometers to go. Tobias Johannesson throws in another big attack, and it's Almeida that starts bringing things back. Now behind it's Nairo Quintana, who got gapped over the top of the climb. He's finding his way back on. He must have blitzed the descent and flew through that right turn before the climb started going up. Now he's starting to get back on, but Ben O'Connor, the AG2R rider, he's found some climbing legs again here at Vuelta Catalunya. Remember, he was race leader at one point in time. Now he's throwing in a massive attack. Again, it's Almeida on the front to bring it back. With 900 meters to go, that group that was originally 5 then became 6 with Carapaz on the descent. Now became 7 with Nairo Quintana with the slight uphill with 3 kilometers to go. Now they're dropping down the descent, and it's 1 kilometer into the finish line with a group up there of all the GC favorites. Then 900 meters later, it's Jumbo-Visma coming from behind. They latch back onto the front group, and with 800 meters to go, we'll see the quick-step rider Andre Baggioli flying around the left side of the GC favorites there. It's going to be a mad dash to the line up front with 400 meters to go as they're coming into the slight right sweeper. It's Carlos Verona up there from Movistar leading it out. Then Guillaume Martin with 200 meters to go. He's on the front. Andre Baggioli, he slots in at 175, takes a brief half second, 1 second at the most rest, then starts his sprint with about 150, 125 meters to go and wins today's stage 7, the last stage here at Vuelta a Catalunya, to take the victory for Quick Step. Fantastic win for Andre Baggioli. This required a lot of suffering. Lots of times you don't see Baggioli up there with all the GC favorites when the attacks were happening on the final climb. But you know he's always trying to find a way with the second, third groups back there throughout the stages, throughout the circuits here on stage 7 to get himself back up to the front. With 1 kilometer to go, nobody was even in the picture. And at the finish line, it's Quick-Step Andre Baggioli that wins the stage in fantastic style. Behind for second, it's Attila Valters from FDJ second. Barcelo Caja Royal will finish out the podium. And Dylan Teuns was 5th on today's stage. Remember, he was one of the original breakaway riders of 11 on this stage. So to get 5th, to survive riding in the break all day long, then to survive 6 laps of this brutal circuit, find his way back onto the front group and finish 6th. Fantastic result for Dylan Teuns. Aguita will win the overall classification. He'll take the KOM jersey. He'll take the Young jersey. So he wraps up just about everything. Bahrain Victorious will take the team classification, and the sprint classification will go to Caden Groves from Bike Exchange to round out all the big classification jerseys here at Vuelta a Catalunya. Now, second and third on the general classification, Carapaz held on for second. Big time fighter. They lit up this stage 7 with only 3 riders from Ineos to start the stage. Third place, UAE Team Emirates Almeida. They lit up the course here too. Fantastic day of racing here at Vuelta a Catalunya. In fact, every stage, all 7 stages at Vuelta a Catalunya were absolutely fantastic to be a part of and watch if you're a fan sitting on the couch. Now, there were some crazy tactics to go along with all that excitement, and crazy tactics always make for great bike racing. So there's big races up north in the Classics starting. There's more bike races throughout the season. Of course, we're getting that much closer to the Grand Tour starting. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition of The Butterfly Effect.